Okay, we're going to start on time. My name's Elizabeth Rodgers. This is Art and AI, a Renaissance or Reckoning, and with the idea that when you can generate anything, when anyone can generate anything, what makes art matter? And so I'm going to introduce myself. My name's Elizabeth Rodgers, and here with my in the front row, Stephanie Inman. We founded the Boise Artist Meetup, and it's a collection of artists from all across the city and all different disciplines. We're filmmakers and in film and theater and poetry and visual artists and music, and our goal is to share ideas and spark collaboration and create a thickness of community in Boise to figure out what's next and how to part of it, Stephanie wanted to know more artists in town. I mean, as simple as that. Other than that, I started off as an actor, and then I became a writer and wrote my own shows. And then I became a filmmaker. I made documentaries and wrote narrative screenplays. And I moved here, and I made short films and more documentary, mini documentaries. And what else have I? Oh, and I have just finished writing my first manuscript of a novel. And this is a story that I discovered in 1990, and that was what the PBS documentary was about. Then I wrote the screenplay. Then it got pitched as a mini series. Then I was toying with the idea of a graphic novel, and then ultimately it came out as a YA historical novel. So I've been with this for a long time. I think I'm done, unless somebody wants to make a Broadway musical, and then we can talk. Christie, you want to introduce yourself?
I am here not in an artistic capacity. I keep telling these folks that I am a consumer of art, a patron, a listener, and a reader.
And say your whole name.
I'm Christie Wright, and I guess professional accolades. I am the chief customer officer at a company called Automatic. We're the folks behind WordPress. And so in my day job, I am at the forefront of seeing how artists are leveraging technology like AI to further their distribution, grow their audiences, and also get a little bit of a glimpse into how they're using these tools. That's me.
Jamey?
Hello, everybody. Jamey Baumgardt. I'm originally from Puget Sound. My husband and I moved here 2 years ago from the Puget Sound area. I am an artist. I got my BFA in painting and drawing from University of Washington, and more recently I got my MFA in creative writing as well. So I'm a writer and a painter and also a hobbyist musician, I'll say. But I also have had a 30-year career in technology. Currently I work for Microsoft, and I am a principal design director leading a team of UX designers. So I think I straddle the line between technology and art quite well. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathleen Cohen, and thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Christie, Jamey, Hackfort, and happy to be back at Hackfort. I'm an extended reality and AI strategist. I have a consultancy called The Collaboratorium. We focus on client projects, research, as well as public engagement. I run an award show in Germany every year for extended reality and AI. So if you have a project and you want to bring it onto the European market, come talk to me. I also am an advisor for Aura, which we'll be talking about tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And it's all for ArcGIS, Unreal, and AI enthusiasts for city planning and digital twins, that big word. And lastly, also, I am an advisor for HoloRide, which is a spin-out from Audi Innovation, and that is, think theme park in your car. VR in your car, but for the passenger.
Okay, we're going to do a quick poll here to begin with. Who here is an artist with hands raised? Terrific.
Isn't everybody an artist?
Well, everyone is creative, I would say. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And where are you in your journey? I'm going to have you raise your hands again. Emerging, mid-career, and established. We'll start with emerging. Okay. Mid-career and established. Well, there's a lot fewer hands. Okay, than the first hand raise. Okay. And then let me ask you this. So who uses AI anywhere in your process? And that's from ideation to production to dissemination and marketing, with a show of hands. And who here does not use AI on principle? Okie doke. All right. And So let me ask you this, the next question. So there's clearly tension between AI and art. So what's the reason not to use AI with your art? I mean, you can just shout stuff out.
Ownership.
Okay, ownership. Originality. Quality. Mm-hmm. Authenticity. It takes part of the process from you.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
I heard pride.
Oh, pride. Okay. We could also talk about the environment, right? Because it takes a heavy toll on the environment. You're putting people out of a job, some people say. So based on what we saw from the audience, we're not going to talk about whether AI is good or bad, but we're going to talk about it in a general sense. So are we in a renaissance or a reckoning, or is this the discussion until we get to that point? So what I would like to know is, first, is AI a tool or a generative agent? Christie, how would you answer that question? And do you want to define that for us, or are you the good person to define that?
I don't know if I'm the right person to define it.
Okay.
I think that would be up to the artists themselves. Oh, do you mean just what
what a generative agent is,
Right.
rather than using it as a tool?
You know who I think has a more clear distinction is Jamey. I think you have a very
On the spot
sorry
here.
about that. We all met previously to do a little bit of talking, and so that's how I know this.
I mean, I can give my opinion on this. I don't think there's any one right answer. The caveat here is that this technology has come upon us very quickly, and it's moving and evolving very quickly. So anything we say up here today is a reflection of this moment in time that could be obsolete opinion by next week or next month or later this year. So I just want to get that clear. In terms of using the technology as a tool, I think that sits better with me than using it to generate ideas or to generate output. AI can, I think, fall across the spectrum of all of those things, to be quite honest. You can be used as a very simple tool as part of the process. It can be used to do the bulk of the heavy lifting and all of the work. So that's sort of my take on tool versus generative AI. To me, it's all software. I work for Microsoft. This is the hottest thing. Every single team at Microsoft, as you can imagine, is working on AI in some way, shape, or form. And more recently, it's all about agents, right? It's just software to me. I'm not. By the way, I'm not representing my company at all in this session. So please, no hashtag, no quoting. This Microsoft guy said this, but to me, like my personal opinion is, it's just an evolution of how software works, and the agent stuff, and even the AI term. To me, it's marketing and branding. Everybody's super excited about this, and it's great. It can fundamentally change the way we live, and it can potentially solve problems like cures for cancer and those sorts of altruistic things. Right now, the big companies are trying to figure out, they've really invested in this. Now they've got to figure out how to turn a profit, and so that's where the excitement and the worry is coming from. I'll stop there.
And where on that spectrum, the generative to the AI as a tool, what for you do you bring into your art, and where do you toe the line? Yeah,
so I guess I'm kind of a purist. I saw some hands raised. I don't use AI at all in my art, my artistic practice. I just completed a residency at the Commonwealth, 6-month show and tell residency through the Alexa Rose Foundation. And I spent about 600 hours working on a mural, 30-panel mural. It took me 600 hours. It was all done by hand. But I used Photoshop to help me kind of plan it out. Photoshop is a tool. I mean, I've been using Photoshop for 30 years or however long it's been around. So that's a great example of an artist using a tool to aid their vision and execution. But I didn't use any AI. I said I was a hobbyist musician as well. I don't use any AI in my music. And same with my novel manuscript. I didn't use it at all. Like I said, I use it all the time at work, extensively. We're actually sort of mandatory. We have to use it. It's sort of just, that's the name of the game now. But I do draw the line for my artistic practice.
What I was going to say about that is like you can't run from the agentic part of Photoshop now. So it's like, it's embedded in everything, so where are you going to go with it? And I appreciate that position that you're in. One of the things that I remember, I don't think I shared it, is that I was the first immersive artist in residence here at Searle's Place. And that was 2022, I think. Anyway, they had never had an immersive artist in residence, and so they didn't really understand how to shepherd that. And it conveniently happened during COVID. And I said, as any immersive artist would do, we will have this whole artist residency in the metaverse. So we spent 2 months in the metaverse convening with John Anderson, Julian Reyes, from the University of Idaho in Moscow at the Virtual Technology Design Center. We needed that team to come down to Boise and really do a full 360 scan of Searle's Place so we could upload that into the metaverse in order to take shop in this space, then to invite community around the actual art piece. So just to show from 2022, the big issue was even just immersive, much less AI, and how we're looking at extended worlds. And now we're bringing in where you could vibe code this in a second and you can have all of this up and running, and the ease of that to have access to people that aren't usually invited to the table is a no-brainer for me. That was like, of course. So I just sort of want to pin, I'm always going to represent the cross-section of in real life, on a screen, and then inside an immersive world, and how we have to answer all three of those with attribution and provenance and copyright and all the things. There's probably one other thing I didn't say that probably helps, because this will be something I can share with you all, is that being from Los Angeles, you get stuck in media and entertainment whether you like it or not. And so I have a little role in judging the emerging media content for television. And the summits that go on in Hollywood around AI always boil down to legal, as you could imagine. And being a girl gamer back from 1994, 95 in the Medal of Honor brand, people were signing their rights away with media not yet created that became non-playable characters that became things like Alex Vance, let's say, for Half-Life. So this whole journey on how we twin ourselves, what that means, the provenance of our person, much less our art, has been ongoing, and we've watched it been taken from us. So from Hollywood's point of view, not like you asked, but I'm going to tell you anyway. From Hollywood's point of view, everybody references name, image, likeness, attribution. Every legal person references those four. So they're saying copyright, attribution, audit rights, and provenance are all the things that you have to consider when you're protecting yourself around AI. And things like in perpetuity, media not yet created, there's no legislation to support you. So because of that, do not sign that. Don't get engaged with that. Look at the fine print. That's their response right now as of 3 weeks ago. So I'm just giving you a heads up and a little bit of info that just came straight off, hot off the press, to look at those four things and to recognize what in perpetuity means with your likeness or your content. So, your walk cycle could be inside, Fortnite because you have a cool walk cycle or a dance move, and then there's a lawsuit for it.
Right. So, Christie, you work with a lot of artists. And what is their relationship with AI, and how do you negotiate that?
Yeah, I think similar to the audience, it's a spectrum of use, which I think is really interesting. But where I think it really has opened the door is in terms of distribution. Artists, you all know, right, have to make a living. You don't have to make a living, right? And I think these tools get to the business of art even before you start getting into discussions about how you're using them in your art. And that, to me, is great. That's a democratization in a way. That's a way to grow an audience, grow a community that I think is a benefit of these tools.
I mean, the democratization also can create a much more shallow kind of art, too, right? If we do a generative, if it's, what you said, garbage in, garbage out, if we have people who are, emerging artists and going immediately into AI, generative AI, not just as a tool. Jamey, you brought up something in our pre-panel discussion about seeing it both ways, because if somebody in a developing nation is using the AI.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of leveling the playing field and giving opportunity and access to those who might not have it otherwise. I think I read something recently online somewhere, a story about a a young man in an undeveloped nation or underdeveloped nation in Africa was able to make a pretty astounding short film using an iPhone and then some AI technology along with it, which I think is just a wonderful feel-good story. We can all get on board with that, I should say. But then when you contrast that with a story like, what was the movie, The Brutalist, that we talked about? The Brutalist, I guess, was made $10 million budget, which is pretty low for that kind of a movie in Hollywood, and large portions of it were created using AI technology. And gosh, we have to say, does that feel as good as the first anecdote? I don't know.
To me, it feels great because I think, they made an art film that looked like a very expensive film for $10 million that never would have gotten a bigger budget. So somebody was able to realize their vision. Whereas if that film was made 20 years ago, they would not have been able to make it at all. So
no, it's a fair point.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the best comparison, but I think we can't just say no. And this is not my position, by the way. My position is not that anybody here should not use AI in your artistic practice. That is entirely a personal decision. I want to be very clear about that. I've made my decision up to this point to not engage in it. That could change. I'm highly doubtful, but who knows? But it's a highly personal decision, and I think it comes down to, what does your artistic practice mean to you? What does your art mean to you? What is art versus entertainment? What is an artist versus a content creator, right? I don't think those are the same. I think there's a spectrum, and that's good, that's fine. There's a need for all of this in the world. And so again, you need to engage with yourself and determine, what does art mean to me? What does my artistic practice mean to me? Where do I need to draw the line? What is acceptable? What is not in terms of what this technology does? And some things you can take into account when you weigh that decision are, what are people willing to engage with? I think there's been a lot of excitement recently, right, over the last year or plus. And I think we're just now starting to see some signs of that pendulum kind of swinging back a little bit. First and foremost example would be OpenAI canceling Sora and the deal with Disney getting canceled that just happened in the last couple of days. I think that's a very strong indicator that, again, some of these companies that are super excited about this stuff may have over-indexed a little bit and maybe misjudged what the public is really willing to engage with and consume. And I'll just one more little quote here. I saw this quote on Instagram the other day. Human-made is the new luxury, and the demand for it will only continue to increase from this point, which I thought was really compelling.
Well, yeah, if we have infinite content, if anyone can create anything, and Amazon now I think has a new rule in the book publishing where you can only publish 2 books a day, right? It's crazy, right? So we have this infinite content, it completely flattens it out. Kathleen, what do you think the role of the artist in society is, and how is it, how's that going to change with AI?
Yeah, I have 2 thoughts. Christie and I were just talking about this. I went back to my art school and went to go talk to the director. Hey, how's everything going here? It was a very traditional art school in Boston. And who's talking about immersive? Who's talking about things like AI? And he's like, why would we talk about that here? Go to the data sciences building and talk about it there. And I was like, what? He had no correlation and no reason to believe that that should even be a discussion. Now, I came out of art school, was a happy glassblower, became an industrial designer thinking I was going to be a glass architect, and I had friends of mine back home in LA saying, what are you doing glassblowing? Like, stop it. Really? We need to get you on the box. I don't even know what that phrase meant. And on that box meant I would become an animator, which was Silicon Graphics SGI, learning to be an animator. And then went straight to video gaming. So if you do or don't know Silicon Graphics SGI in Hollywood, it was about high def, high fidelity. It's the dream come true to be a Pixar animator. And then they put you in gaming. And it's the lowest polygon count, the lowest shapes. It's the worst moment of your life, you think, until you realize 30 years later, oh, I was world building for 30 years now. Now we're in this new conversation of world building, and I understood what we were doing back then, and it wasn't just about the visual. I only bring it up because here I am making art. Now I realize I can scan that. piece of art. Now I can animate that piece of art. Now I can take it into a gaming engine. I can, name it a non-playable character. Now I've seen an extended pipeline for my original content that has never left me, and it's the reason why I always felt my art school telling me I was a sellout for either A, selling my artwork, because you can't do that for the first 10 years out of art school, or they poo-poo you, or like everybody's like, can you hand over that gig? Can you hand over that gig? And I was like, sure, take that gig. I can't do all of this. And now look at where we are, back to the legal side of provenance and your, rights and all of that we're fighting. But AI is our universal collective unconscious being reflected back to us, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow at 11 o'clock also. So you can't help but deny that we're contributing to this renaissance. Can I take 1 minute and explain one thing as well? So I was at the Wisdom AI conference in a year ago, last October, 2024. Small conference in San Francisco around consciousness and AI. So who's opening it up? Sam Altman and Charles Oppenheimer. Amazing conference to have those two talk about it. Oppenheimer was like, hey, I'm the grandson of something that humanity was in the palm of our family's hand, and we had to have a consciousness around it. Hey, Sam, what do you think about it? Sam's like, let me explain it to you this way. In 2020, when ChatGPT 4 came out, any child born before ChatGPT 4 will believe their own intelligence. Any child after ChatGPT 4 will basically defer to the oracle. Don't worry, humanity. Technology always advances. We'll catch up. Everybody was in there like, that's the best you've got? Honestly, by the end of the day, the head of Google Robots was also presenting. He's basically saying, hey, intelligence is covered with Altman. We've got Google Robots. Here's where we are in the pipeline. Robots are coming to your house. You're going to find an app for it that's going to do your plumbing. You're going to go to LinkedIn and you're going to back it up with the LLM that backed up that actual app to find out what robot's coming to your house. So I sat there an entire day of wisdom and AI. Deepak Chopra was there too, and that was before he was named. But anyway, not one person said the word creative the whole day.
They were just marketing to you. They were just marketing.
Well, I just sat there like, okay, you got intelligence handled, and if you're not smart, you're going to go trade skill. Okay, that's handled. So where does that leave everybody in the next 25 years? Okay, it leaves us in a creative renaissance or a reckoning, but it's in a moment where nobody's coming for your divine gift. Are they coming for your divine gift? What do you want to give of your divine gifts? Your divine gifts. So I was really left with, we're in a creative renaissance for sure, and you might be on the creative reckoning side of that, I don't know. But I just wanted to add the flavor of this ecosystem that we're in.
Yeah, just Sam Altman may or may not be a sociopath. I'm just...
the jury's out. We couldn't use our phones. They all had to be hidden in bags. You weren't allowed to be in the room with a phone.
Did they address power outages in this world? Look what happens.
Nobody in Wisdom AI addressed the grid.
Okay.
Maybe Wisdom 2.0 does. I don't know.
We've got it in our back pocket. We have to keep some survival skills for the inevitable.
That's why we're here in Idaho.
Right.
I'm
There you
counting
go.
on
There
Idaho.
you go.
I'm
We all-
counting on
yes,
Idaho.
the last safe bastion.
Yeah.
Jamey, I am curious, is it important to you that folks looking at your art know that no AI went into your process?
Well, not up until recently, no. I think it will become more important to divulge that information. Honestly, I foresee a future where, let's use Netflix as an example, that they're going to have to tag their shows that were generated with AI. They're going to have to. People are going to want to know, or they're going to stop paying for it. Especially, they just pushed a price increase. I think it's up to $19.99 now for ad-free. Yeah, it's gone up 150% in the last X number of years. I think people are going to demand that, and I think it's fair. I think it should be divulged. People deserve to know.
Do you think people are going to care if the content is good?
I do. I certainly can. I can speak for myself, but I do. Part of being an artist for me is the struggle. If it's easy to do, it's not worth doing most times. The struggle is the point. The difficulty is the point. The process is the point. It's not I was able to speed this up 100x to get it out so you all could view it or read it. That's not the point. The point is, for me as an artist, is doing the work and then what I'm discovering along that journey. That to me is what art is. Art is not about the end product. It's about the discovery of myself and my viewpoint of the world and how I choose to interpret that and then digest it and then create something to give back to the world to further the conversation. That's That is my definition of what it means to be an artist. And so when these tools come into play that speed things up to get stuff out really quickly, of questionable quality most times, we have to ask ourselves, why do we find ourselves in this situation? And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I think it's because we're victims of capitalism, which is the system in this country, whether we like it or not. And I'm not anti-capitalist. I am anti today's capitalism that seems to be exist without hardly any guardrails at all whatsoever, right? So we see the rich getting extremely, extremely wealthy, and the rest of us are sort of suffering as a part of that. But it's this intense push to produce maximum content or value with the minimum amount of effort. And it's not just capitalism, it's also our old brain at work. I think we're wired to get the most bang for our buck with the minimal amount of effort. That's survival. So it all makes sense when you think about it under that lens. But there's this great story that Ireland, I think, they just did a 3-year study where they gave artists, not every artist, but they did a study on a select number, a couple of thousand maybe. They gave them all basic income. Wasn't even that much. It was $1,300 a month. But it was enough for those couple thousand artists to live for 3 years and not have to worry about putting food on the table or paying their rent.
And they have health care.
And they have health care. I get a little emotional when I talk about this because I don't live in a society where the artist is recognized or cherished or a society that wants to take care of that and value the output of that and understand that the cultural importance of what artists are doing in terms of how they're participating and what they're giving to society.
Well, people would argue as content creators, saying they're artists creating content. Now it's moved over to the content creation category under the definition of artists, people who are jumping on and looking at this ecosystem saying, how do I participate? That's what I see, where people are trying to put food on their table in content creation.
So tell us a little bit about how you see the difference between content creation and art in this context.
I mean, this is difficult. Like, when you come out of art school, they're like, please don't be the designer that's going to go into hotels. You're not a real artist, you know? It's like, okay, so I should work at a job that has nothing to do with my art to take up all that time that I could be creating my art. Yeah, I haven't actually designed anything for a hotel, but I mean, I just remember those conversations at the time. But now we didn't have that kind of mass connection that we have here. And I don't know if I have a definition of content creator because you're just not the content creator, you're the content consumer and the creator in both. And so that's been a interesting merge where I don't know if, I don't know. I have to brew on that. I have to think about that.
Can I chime in on that quickly? Please. So when is the last time that any of you saw a reel on Instagram that stuck with you for days or weeks or months or years, and it's something you still think back on and that you cherish that moment because it changed the way you looked at the world in such a deep and meaningful way that you'll never forget it? Or when's the last time you went to a museum and you saw a painting that you couldn't leave? You had to stand there and sit with it for a while. And then you had to ask yourself, why is this so powerful?
But does the standard have to be that high? I do think people can be very artistic with Instagram. I love the culture of remixing and meme culture and
Sure.
referencing something else. That may not stick with me in the same way
Yeah.
something at the Boise Art Museum might stick with me, but I don't think that those folks are any less artists than anybody else.
Yeah.
As a consumer.
And that's where we disagree, and that's totally fine. Again, this is very subjective. I consider one kind of entertainment, and I consider the other one more traditional art.
Okay, so on that note, when I came out of art school, I was making money doing local public art. And if you're in Boston doing public art, it's got all kinds of rules because it's a historical city. Versus going to New Orleans when I was doing public art, they're like, you could paint anarchy on the church down here. We don't care, it's gonna flood. So do whatever you want. And my point is, as a public artist, everybody weighs in on your stuff. You get out there and you paint something and someone's like, I gotta look at that every single day while I drive down my street. Who did you paint that for? And you're like, let me think about that. I was doing a historical reference to this site, or you're involved in city planning, you're in a different definition as a public artist versus a private gallery artist, and that too splits hairs on definition of an artist. So you could say public artists might be more like content creators, nowadays. I don't know, because you're throwing it out there and you're getting a tremendous amount of feedback. So
it's a more democratic form of art, right? I mean, because it's not behind a wall, and it's not behind a paywall in a museum or in a gallery that is in some part of town that most people can't get to. It's out for everybody to see.
Well, yeah, and in my world, if you're going to digitally twin a city and there's public murals and you want to be, a realist, and you're going to take that public art into an immersive world, and you're not attributing the artist, and people are in that space and they're taking it and moving it forward the way they want. I mean, we're levels deep in the provenance of all of this. But it was public art to begin with.
If we could extend that to, use music as a metaphor for the whole entertainment versus art thing, even before the advent of AI, I haven't been particularly fond of, not all, but most modern pop music, because I equate that to kind of mass-produced, sort of not ill thought out, but not very well thought out, music for the masses. And look, there's a place for it. People love it. They love dancing to it. It makes them
Kids
happy.
these days.
Yeah, no, but it's not a kids these days thing. You know what I'm most excited about this weekend is I'm going to go see Geese play in the park tomorrow night. They're an incredible brand new band over the last several years out of New York.
AI
And no AI. But so it's not to say that it's I'm an old grandpa who doesn't like modern music, because I think Geese is a fantastic band. But the musicians that I really admire are the ones that I know, I'm fairly confident, are the ones that are sitting down and doing the really hard work to come up with very original, heartfelt, meaningful gift to give to the world. I'll also mention, I don't tend to put playlists together. I tend to listen to albums start to finish as these bands intended. That's my favorite way to listen to music. So I think in some ways, yeah, I'm a traditionalist in my views towards art generally across all genres. But again, I'm not eschewing all uses of AI either. It's a personal decision.
Yeah, and I also want to, I think you're probably making a distinction between that one-shot generative AI, like, hey, ChatGPT, go write me a novel about a single lady who owns a doodle in Boise, Idaho. It's me. And what does it come up with?
It's a biography.
Exactly. That versus working with an AI, prompting, responding to it feels very different to me.
That's difficult though, because these models, these LLM models, we want to talk about the technology for a minute, they've been built upon the work of all these past artists who didn't have the benefit of it.
That's interesting.
So
that as a tool is interesting.
You're taking a shortcut built on other people's work that are not getting any sort of, not that they would be interested, I certainly wouldn't be interested, but they're not getting paid for it at all. I don't know, something, again, it's a very personal thing, and I know the train, let's use a different metaphor, the horse has left the barn on this one, but for me it doesn't sit well.
What about LLMs that sit on your personal computer?
That's completely different. If you're using your material and only your material, and you want to sit there and remix it, and I love the remix analogy. I think all art fundamentally is remix. We're just distilling everything we've ever experienced and trying to come up with our own little take on it. So, who was it? David Bowie, James Murphy of the band LCD Sound System admitted to David Bowie, before he passed, that he had ripped off some riff from one of his songs. And David Bowie's response was great. He said, "Oh, darling, you can't steal from a thief." And it's so true. He was just acknowledging he was the master of grabbing little bits and bobs. And I think as artists we absolutely should do it. I do it in all of my work. I'm constantly reading all sorts of literary fiction and saying, "Oh, I love Sally Rooney. Oh, I love Sally Rooney. I want to write like Sally Rooney, right?" Or I love Larry Rivers or Jasper Johns. I want to absorb something of their DNA into my paintings. So remix is a great word. When it comes to wholesale, I don't want to say rip off because that's kind of a strong term, but when these things are just able to scrub the entirety of every record of every painting ever made, and then you just say, hey, make me a make me a luncheon on the grass by Monet, but make it on the Boise River. And I was like, well, is that art? I don't know.
Well, the addition of the on the Boise River might be the idea.
It's all in the ask.
Right.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
thought you were going to say something.
I do. I can say so much. I do have a couple thoughts, but go ahead, and then I'll weigh in after.
Well, we were talking about the devaluation of creative labor. I mean, if you take it from AI rather than take it because you saw it in this book and now you want to put it into your song, your book, your picture, your whatever. What's the difference? How is the take different, right? How is that thievery? Because we all say, oh, I really like that, and I want to model that into my work.
There's so much lost opportunity by taking the shortcut. Again, I want to come back to what I said earlier. It's about the journey. It's about the discovery. It's not about getting to the finish line as quickly as possible. It's like all the wonder and the joy and the discovery and the scratching things out and crumpling the paper and throwing it over your shoulder and starting over. Like, that's the value of art making.
The torture.
To me. Well, it can be at times, absolutely. Like, I've left my studio late at night many times, just completely dejected, and you go home and you get that necessary bit of sleep, and when you wake up in the morning, you might wake up with an aha, wait,
Yeah.
all hope is not lost.
Yeah,
Now I know where to go with this.
There is something delightful about being backed into a corner and thinking, well, maybe my taste exceeds my talent, and I don't know where I'm going to go with this, and maybe I just have to accept that, and then waking up the next day and saying, oh, okay, I got it, and that is a pleasure of being an artist. That's like the main pleasure, because you got to take it when you can.
Two thoughts. Back to art school, because it obviously traumatized me. The professors would say, not only do you have to paint for 10 years before you can make a living, they were like, you should be painting your whole life and putting every piece in a closet and never looking at it, and it only should be your legacy when you die that you should be recognized as an artist. And I'm like, oh my God. At a time where I talk about meet your digital twin, I'm like, I want to go back to that guy and be like, you know what? Now my digital twin could be the legacy. When I'm gone, we've got that solved. Fine. But in all honesty, I couldn't be more happy about being in this moment. This is the most phenomenal human moment ever. And it's like, who's to say what's a shortcut versus this is our new material that we're working with? And, maybe this is me Pollyanna and me looking forward with a glass half full that way, but, shortcut is the word that jumps out to me. And I don't know if it's a shortcut. For some people it might be, because, God, it's exhausting. And yes, it takes, less time. And this is all going to make us reevaluate what it means to be human. And we're going to be talking that 11 o'clock tomorrow also. Not feeling rendered useless because everything's handled. But I don't know if it's shortcut or if it's a new cut.
It's a shortcut.
Yeah. I think it has to be, though. I think you see it as that. But I think that somebody else could use it in a much different way.
I mean, there's just one dictionary definition of shortcut, but
how you're looking at it, and you use it in. I understand why you are a craftsman in your day job, and you use it a lot in your day job, and it does probably make things faster for you in your day job.
Oh, I use it in my day job for things like, I wasn't able to attend this meeting, give me a recap of this meeting, because I tend to have 3 times as many meetings as I can attend in a day. Unfortunately, this is where we're at. So I use it for things like that, and it is very useful. It saves me. I can listen to a recording for a half an hour, or I can read a 2-minute synopsis of the meeting, right? So that's a great use of the technology. That's not art at all in any way, shape, or form.
But that doesn't mean that same tool can't be used in a way that's not a shortcut, but that deepens somebody's artistic practice.
So let me give you an example. Let me give another anecdote then, and I'd love to know your opinion on this. So an artist I admire very much, and I have admired throughout my career, his name is Larry Rivers, who's a New York artist. He had a great biography that he wrote, autobiography. He wrote with another person. It was an autobiography called "What Did I Do?" And when I was in art school, way back in the day, I read that cover to cover, probably twice. And as I was, reading maybe 10 or 15 pages an evening, say, And so that to me was a very valuable experience that probably, so pretty thick book, it probably took me maybe a couple of months. That was a very valuable journey for me to go on as an artist, learning about this person that I admired and learning about sort of what life he was living when he was making the works that I hold up, you know. So that's what I did. Had the technology existed back then that exists today, I could have said, ChatGPT, give me a 10-page summary of this biography. I just don't think I know for a fact that the experience wouldn't have been the same. The value that I derived from ingesting all of that information, doing it the way I did it versus the way that's available now, it's like night and day, I think.
Yeah, but you're young. There's Spark Notes. There was probably a synopsis of that book somewhere online already, a blog about it or whatnot.
I'm not that young. This was 1996, probably.
And I would say I'm 1996 in art school. I was so impressioned by this. It's, again, you know, whether it's a 1,200 word prompt or not, it's in that prompt that I would like to see the flavor. Can it show me a feeling? And yes, a lot of people have said AI has shown me feelings, and that's certainly in XR and in VR, the promise is the empathy machine. So we're all headed to that way. Intelligence isn't here. It's our whole lighting up of our proprioception and our somatic experience.
We're scheduled to end in about 10 minutes, so I wanted to open up for questions. If anybody has a question from the audience?
It's fair to say that we are present at the creation. This is the silent film era of AI. Silent film invented the grammar of film. How do you see AI maturing?
So what was just asked is, we're in the silent film era of AI, and everything is being invented. And tell me again, what was the question?
The grammar of film.
And the grammar of film is being invented.
How do you see AI congealing?
How do we see AI congealing?
Put, science fiction,
Yeah.
it's going to become a settled matter. 85% of it will be crap, but 85% of anything is crap.
85% of anything is crap today, yesterday, 20 years ago.
I just want to, this is so funny you're bringing it up, and I actually have a personal story, which I'll land the plane in a minute, or less. My great-grandfather came to the United States as a symphony conductor. He was summoned by Sid Grauman of Silent Movies in Los Angeles to be the orchestra in the pit for the silent movies. So it's funny that you bring this up. So I can tell you firsthand what that meant to now add music and a live performance on top of what silent movies was in its initial incarnation. So when you talk about congealing as an example, there's an example how this was advancing the emotion of what people were watching. I would believe something like that, where we are mixing this experience. I don't know, but there's something there, and I like the question.
It will come together eventually.
Yeah, if we're not living to tell it, our digital twin will understand it. So we'll be cyborgs.
I have a slightly different take on this. I mentioned it, I think, at the front of it, of the talk. I think that there is an awful lot of hype, and I think we will see a correction. Again, I think there are wonderful, fantastic uses of this technology that will end up being the 15% or whatever, the separating the cream rising to the top, let's say. But right now we're in crazy mode. It is absolutely nuts. It's totally Wild West, and it's exciting and it's scary. So I would just encourage everybody to sit back and enjoy the ride. Experiment, absolutely experiment. I don't know where it's going to land. I don't know where it's going to land generally for us just as human beings versus us as artists versus us as potentially being diagnosed with cancer and sometimes in our life, like versus where these tech companies think they want to take us. But I do think there is quite a huge bubble right now that we will see a correction, and hopefully, my experience is that the technology just simply doesn't work very well in terms of like the general AI stuff. When it's fine tuned to do very specific things, it's quite amazing. It's quite stunning. So,
Anybody else? Yes, you.
Yeah. So, kind of two-part question here. One comment that you had made was as far as the horse has already left the stable. We've got all of these LLMs attribution of who created it. I also see how, I do agree of the pendulum is swinging the other way. How do we encourage lawmakers and anyone who has the capability to make regulatory requirements to prevent just mass theft of content?
So the question is, how do we get lawmakers to address the technology stage that we're in and prevent theft? I mean,
I think we're going to have to wait until 2028, to be honest with you. I don't see a lot happening with this administration. I'm being very serious, regardless of your politics. The fact is that a lot of the leaders of these large companies, they're very close with the current administration, and it feels like, I think we, as citizens, we should do our jobs, which is to, contact our representatives and express our opinions and do what we can online, using our presence online to promote this idea of like, hey, we need guardrails for this, right? But I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of traction on that anytime soon, unfortunately.
Well, just
there is more and more attribution, and so I think continue to be loud. So we work with a lot of media and publication clients at Automatic, and they now have ways to be able to tell if there is a AI crawler on their site getting their content, and they can stop it and they can say, hey, give us a payment for this. And I think there will be more of that in the future, and that's both because the consumer's demanding it, but the artists are also being quite loud. So I would also recommend that.
I'm bummed that my website's built on Squarespace and not WordPress.
I know someone.
maybe you can
who
broker a
help
deal.
you.
I
I can't believe you trust Squarespace. So.
I'll talk to you afterwards.
The other thing I would add to that is, us in the U.S., we have deferred to Europe for GDPR standards and how we handle that. And Europe is pushing through their AI Act, and it's in the hot seat right now for us to now take another page out of that playbook. So we have followed. It's if we still are nice friends with Europe. Europe's attitude is we can do all this now on our own. So I would say the AI Act that has come through, have you looked at it and checked it out? It might be really good to be informed by that and use that for legislation for yourself too. But the AI Act, it was the referendum, now it's the AI Act. Check it out.
Andrew?
So, what is IP, and is the effort IP, is the idea or the specification of the thing or the concept you came up with the IP?
The basic question that Andrew just asked is, what is IP?
I mean, to be in a room in Hollywood with 7 lawyers on stage talking about this because everybody's protecting themselves from this very conversation is an interesting one. I mentioned before the 4 ways in which they address IP and how to protect IP. Are you asking what's the new definition of intellectual property?
I mean, I left it as an open-ended question because part of like the attribution.
Yeah.
What do you own?
Mm-hmm.
Do you own the physical thing that was created, or what it looks like, the concept that was behind it?
I think it's 2 things. I think it's righting wrongs, so jumping ahead of that now and getting artists and other folks with attribution, and it's also writing new, moving forward in this new Wild West, how we move forward, because everything's connected. It's so hard to track that in so many ways. Not track the provenance of your work, but how many times it's been incarnated. And look, soon enough, the form factor of VR is going to be glasses walking down the street in a blended reality, and it's going to be a hyped reality in 20 years, if it finally gets there, because we're still in the developer years for 30 years. But we're redefining moving forward as well. So there are a lot of standards that have now come to play that have never been. Metaverse standards, forums, IEEE, like so many folks are now establishing standards that we're moving forward. I think it's a collection of righting wrongs and moving forward with new.
I mean, just to comment on it, I see it as a huge topic that will span much broader than art. I'm more in the technology world, but if I come up with an amazing idea, do I own it? And
What's AI say? Just kidding. but even better, what does one AI say to the other one? And that's the recursive learning of AI that's just about to hit us, which is they don't need human input, and it's all going to learn on itself. So
Maybe.
I really love your enthusiasm for technology.
it's ridiculous. It's just, I swear.
I want to thank all of you, Kathleen Cohen, Jamey Baumgardt, and Christie Wright. Thank you.
Thank
My
you,
name's Elizabeth Rodgers. And Kathleen has a talk tomorrow at 11 and at 3.
2.
At 2.
Yeah.
I have the Boise Artist Meetup is meeting at the Boise Center West tomorrow at 2. And we're going to talk about how to become a better artist, not with AI, but just in general. How do we deepen our practice? So
And-
thank you so much.
And if there's anybody here that's also interested in Story Fort,
Oh, yes.
I'm reading from my novel manuscript in
exciting.
1 hour from now at Ocho's across town here.
All right.
That's awesome.
So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you to Hack for it.